Hello friends, this is Cara-Renee with B.Reborn Art and Healing, coming to you with my Sunday's Art of Truth for, I don't know the date it will be. It will be the Memorial Day weekend Sunday. Sorry, I did not grab that date. I am still preparing for our fishing trip, so I'm a little bit hyper. So, but I wanted to get this out because I'm feeling just so at peace and so inspired, and I feel like I've gained some time economy by making the changes that I've discussed in previous videos in terms of my social media presence and all of those things. And so just an update on that. So I kind of did a little test. So I didn't know how much traffic was coming to my channel from the groups that I'm in, and it turns out that is not the bulk of my traffic. So I had a video go up last week that I did not post in my groups, in all of the groups I'm in, and then I had 2 days later I had another video and same kind of content, and it was the same viewership. So I feel much more at peace, even though before looking at that I had already let that go. I'm like, you know what, this is your channel, Jesus, like, you do what you want to do with it. I'm letting go. I'm going to puppy guard my time, as I mentioned before. I'm going to rest. I'm going to move slow. I'm going to enjoy my moments and all of that. So the theme of this piece is rest. And so I watched, as I mentioned in an earlier video, I watched Shawn Petit. I watch her every Sunday. She does a Sunday's Inspiration, and she did this beautiful piece. So some of it's going to look very similar to hers because I feel like it just inspired me so much. The basic techniques that she was using, she didn't use any serious three-dimensional texture like I do, and her project didn't get all grungy. And so we're going to try another technique using matte gel, which matte gel allows you to create some texture because you can get some peaks in the material. And when it dries, it creates some texture and hopefully like some wrinkly effects. So we're going to be using matte gel today. I've never used it for that purpose. So I've got my gesso because we might want to use that to push back some of our papers a little bit later on down the road. I've got a variety of paints. Quinacridone Crimson, Muted Pink. This is that really bright pink, almost like a fuchsia. I've got Raw Sienna in a heavy body. I also have Raw Sienna in a fluid acrylic. I've got just an Americana Deco Art, an avocado that'll be a great green, and then deep magenta, a lot, probably more than I'll need, but I wanted to make sure that I had them available. Raw Umber Fluid Acrylic. My matte medium for gluing down my focal images. I've got some water, some alcohol. I'm going to show you how we can use alcohol to remove some things again. And then we also have sap green hue in the artist acrylic. So I'm going to move these over here out of my way, and I'm going to I didn't reach for some brushes, so let me do that really quick. I'm going to go ahead and start the voiceover at this point because, again, my mixed media can go astray very fast and it can be very, very long, and so I need to be able to control the length of it. I guess I should probably talk about, I'm not going to talk about the papers. I'm going to let you see those as they go down. But I've got a few stencils I pulled out. I've got this one that says rest, and I've got my numbers, and then I thought we'd do a little bit of patterning with this stencil, with just a little bit of stenciling with some white paint, I believe. I'm not a big fan of that in the past, but we're going to give it a try. And so I already collaged my board because I wanted to save time again. So I did this last night. This image here is from Shawn Petit, but I printed it on medical paper. So you know that crunchy, noisy paper that they put on the beds, the seats and stuff in your medical office. That's what I'm using, and it's got a shiny side and it's got a matte side. You print on the matte side and look at the transparency of that. And it was a whole heck of a lot easier to work with. When I put this piece down, I got it crooked and I was able to lift it up without it tearing and just reposition it. So game changer. I will link that medical paper. It's very affordable. Comes in a big roll that I'll probably never use in my entire lifetime. But I did want to show you before I go to the voiceover. This is just the extra piece from that. And then I did print another one. I just wanted to show you how it works. So this is a piece of copy paper. I put my image down. I taped my medical paper on, again, shiny side down, and then I used clear tape all around the edges, and then I ran it through my printer and got this image. I'm not going to use this image, but I just wanted to show you what that would look like. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and switch to the voiceover, and I hope that you enjoy. You can check out the blog, but I'll talk about that in the voiceover at the end of the video. Okay, we are going to start with doing some gentle texture using the matte gel that I spoke about in the introduction. Again, I watched a video over on Sean Petit's YouTube channel, and she used matte gel as a transparent way to make texture, and I've never tried it before, so I thought I would go ahead and give it a go. So I'm just finding some brushes and some palette knives to work with here. I actually only needed one, but I'm a little bit crazed at the moment trying to get a bunch of things done. But the reason why this matte gel works as a transparent layer of texture is because it is actually an adhesive as well. So it's going to dry mostly clear. Now you're going to see as we move through the process after we dry that some of my application was a little bit too thick, and so it shows as more white in the end, but we are going to come over that with paint and beautify it, so it is not a problem at all. So I'm just using my palette knife and using different motions to make different lines and edges so that we get some interesting texture and kind of a wrinkled effect on the surface, and you'll be able to see some close-up texture in the videos at the photos at the end of the video. Keeping in mind that, as with most of my mixed media, we do lose a lot of this background with our layers, and that is just fine. Even though I was going for this transparent look, you'll see as we move along that I was a little heavy-handed with my raw umber wash that's coming up, and so I lost a lot of the brightness and lightness of this piece. But I am a firm believer in trusting the process, and I trust the process. I relaxed into this. I had a blast. It was fun. It felt intuitive. It felt natural. It felt right at every step. And so it was a real joy to create. So this matte gel does take a bit of time to dry. I didn't quite dry it enough, so you're going to see I do have a little bit of problem with that, but here is the dry, and you can see that we've got some white bits, and that's where my matte gel was a little bit thicker, but the rest of it kind of disappeared. So it's going to create that texture without covering up the images that we have on the surface. Again, a lot of this does not show up in the end, but that is quite all right. So now I'm going to come in with a raw umber wash. Now a wash is just basically an acrylic paint watered down. Now I was lazy and I didn't get up and get a proper source of water, and I was using my desk as a palette, which was not a good plan at this point in time, but that's okay. It worked out just fine. My desk cleans up beautifully with a little bit of alcohol and some hand sanitizer, so it's perfect. But my wash needed to be way thinner, so see that dark application, and the reason why that kind of threw me is because I'm used to doing a glaze, which is very, very dark and thick. But a wash is a very watered down application of paint, any kind of paint, any color of paint that you want to do a wash with. So you're going to see me kind of play around a little bit with trying to pull some of that up and lighten it up and so on. But it turns out, again, it turns out okay in the end. So we're going to get a baby wipe here, and we're going to start wiping off some of that raw umber wash. When Sean did it, her wash was very, very watered down, and her effect was much better, and it was what I was going for, but was not able to achieve. But you can see by me wiping that back that we're just taking it back to a really vintagey, grungy background. but it wasn't enough grunge for me, apparently, as is usually the case. And so I go in a couple of times. I go in off camera as well when I go to a dry time. And you'll see that there's going to be a darker passage of that brown, kind of on the upper edge and the right edge, but you'll be seeing that here in a moment. Now, I am not a very patient mixed media crafter, and so I didn't make sure that matte gel was completely dry. So where there was a little bit heavier, I did have some lifting right there up at the upper, and right there where I just touched on the lower left hand corner and the upper edge there where you see some white. That's where the matte gel was not quite dry. I did come in when I was off camera and I just patched that up with a little bit of matte gel because it acts as an adhesive, but also as a barrier. So it works great for a repair like this in mixed media fashion. So this should have been enough for me, but it wasn't, because I always go way dark. And part of the reason why I'm practicing some mixed media skills is because I want to learn how to do mixed media techniques that give me all kinds of variety of outputs. So that was our last dry on this, and you can see this is where I was talking about those darker bits of brown on the kind of that right angle. So I'm hoping that this shows up okay. It's hard for me to hold up my project because of my autofocus is off. But it's you'll be able to see it in the photos at the end of the video. So now I'm going to come in with some rubbing isopropyl alcohol on a paper towel, and I'm just very lightly just skipping over all of that beautiful texture. And as you can see, we get some white highlights on the top where it's pulling off some of that paint. Now this is something you have to be very careful with, so go light-handed and go slow. So I need to dry that one more time because that alcohol makes it pretty sticky because it reactivates some of that paint. So look at that grungy texture. Absolutely stunning, gorgeous. Now that the paint chips that you see up there in the upper left hand corner, those completely are going to be covered over with our focal image, our focal collage. So I'm going to go ahead and let you watch as I play around with the arrangement of these papers and talk to you a little bit about the inspiration and give you some info about the blog. So this is my Sunday's Art of Truth, as I mentioned in the introduction, and it is my opportunity to do a mixed media project or a project and then do an inspirational writing that goes with the project in terms of what inspired me, what was going on in my mind, how was I processing through that. So initially when I wanted to do this project, I was thinking about this new space that I'm in around puppy guarding, how much time I spend on social media and on electronic devices in general. And I've really been enjoying a lot more freedom and a lot more peace, being a little less connected to my computer, to social media. I mean, I'm still doing videos and stuff, but that's just pure joy, and it comes from a creative place. But the amount of time I spend on social media is ridiculous and has been ridiculous. I'm not participating too much in groups right now. I'm kind of seeing, like, as I mentioned in the intro, what is the impact of me not kind of pushing myself out there in groups? Are people going to still see my stuff? And the trade-off is worth it, in my opinion, because I have gained an enormous amount of peace and satisfaction from not feeling so obligated to be out in all of the groups. It's just a life, it's not a life drainer, but it is a time sucker, like totally. So I recognize as I'm looking at this now that my whole collage was a little tipsy and what my elements were not quite straight, but that's okay. It's mixed media. It's my project. This is another one that I'm going to keep. I don't generally display my art in my house. I have some in my bedroom, but I just newly displayed some in my studio here, and I put one above our TV, and I'm just feeling very, very good about my creativity right now, and I'm feeling like I want to enjoy it. I want to really have it around me, and I'm going to give myself permission to keep things that are touching to me, and this is one that I will be keeping, which takes me into what kind of inched its way into this project. So I was originally thinking about rest and thinking about peace and thinking about all that self-care stuff that I'm trying to do. But what was happening in that is I was realizing that I had come to a different place of peace around my sweet Emili, and that happened through the beginner journal making series that we just finished. And I, in fact, just did the giveaway, the flip through and the giveaway, and I was surprised by how much I was drawn in emotionally to that project and how much it pulled up some things about that time in my life. That's not a negative thing. Grief is a lifelong process, and I am still working through a lot of those things. And it was all good. They were all good things that I was processing and thinking about and feeling, and it carried over into this project because of the images that I chose. I purchased this kit on Etsy, and I will link it below, that had those roses, and attached to it in the same sheet was all of those paint swatches that you're going to be seeing me apply here in this collage. And they just reminded me so much of her. My love for roses is all about Emili, and so I really it was just a really good way for me to continue to process through that. But I felt like I landed in a different place, and I'll be sharing about that over on the blog as well. But I'm landing in a different place in terms of, I feel like I was able to put to rest some things that have been I guess still bothering me. There's a lot of really strong emotions when you come from a trauma background, and my loss of her was very traumatic, and so being able to work through that in layers has been really good for me. And so yeah, doing the beginner journal making series was great because I was working around that Sweet Rose dressing room kit. And so I decided to use that E for Emili. And then down, I'm going to point to it here in a moment. There's a little word, petite, at the bottom of that Z in that ABC strip on the left. And that is Sean Petit's last name. And so her last name is on that digital. And it just so happened that I left it, and I didn't even think about it. It wasn't deliberate in any way. In fact, if I'd noticed it, I probably would have taken that piece off, but it was meant to be. And so I was thinking about how cool is that, petite, my baby girl, she is in heaven and she is waiting for me. And I am so full of joy that one day I will see her again. And these things, though, help me, again, to continue to work through that and to have happy thoughts and happy, peaceful things about her. And so it's a really beautiful and grace-filled process for me. So just finishing off, and I just am going to backtrack a second. Didn't even mention it because I went into my spiel. I was attaching all those papers with my matte gel because I printed all these images on too thick of a paper. And so I put the matte gel underneath, and then I put a coat of matte medium, which is a fluid matte medium on the top, and that acts as a seal, but it also just made sure that those were sticking down really good. Look at that. Oh, there is where I point to the petite. It was so fun. I love that about creativity. I love the happy accidents and the happy surprises that we bump into. So I know I've been talking this whole video, this whole voiceover. I did not intend to do that, so I hope that's okay. But this is also a technique that I've never tried before. I've used gesso to push back a background, but not a background that's already texturized. So this was very different for me, and I love how it turned out. And in the final product, you can see those little patches of lighter white that kind of breaks up the dark passages of color that we ended up with, which is typical for my work. But this is a way to kind of push that back and make way for some other colors. I come in with a really deep pink, and then a lighter pink, and some raw sienna and some sap green, and it was just a delight. And there was never a point in this process, which is rare, that I didn't get lost in this one. I mean, I got lost kind of in my thoughts about it, but I didn't get lost in the process. And that was really refreshing for me, because often I do get a little bit lost. So I did do another dry. We want to make sure that that gesso is nice and dry. This is my Liquitex Muted Pink, and I've talked about this before because it doesn't look very muted, does it? So I'm not sure what that means, but it is a gorgeous color. So I'm just spraying it with some water to thin it out. I also do put a little bit more on my plate here in a moment, because I do want some thicker, darker passages of that color as I begin moving through this. And I'm just using my finger. I feel like that is just a way to be a little bit more playful and a little looser, and I love it. So again, just coming in with a little bit darker color there. And I'm going to go ahead and set this to music for just a bit, because this process goes on for a while. I will come in with a light pink, which is actually called Bubblegum Pink, and it is a Deco Art Americana paint. It's a craft acrylic. It's a really beautiful color, and I just loved the name of it when I discovered. I picked it. I didn't pick it for the name. I picked it for the color, but it's called Bubblegum Pink. I mean, it doesn't get better than that for baby girls. So, and then I'm going to use, again, raw sienna and sap green hue to balance this background out. So I'm going to go ahead and let you watch for a moment, and I'll be back. I'm going to go in for one more dry. It looks like I'm going to do that before I come in with the other color family, which is the raw sienna and the sap green hue. Just finishing up with those pinks. I do believe I play a little bit more with it as I go along, but you'll see that in a little bit. So this is sap green hue. It's a golden acrylic, but it's a really thick paint, and so I do take a moment and reach for my sap green hue in my golden fluid acrylic because it's more fluid, so it doesn't require me to add a bunch of water to it. let it move a little bit more freely. So, and then I decided we always want to generally work light to dark, and so I'm going to come in with the raw sienna first, but look at that golden color, and it just brings out those yellows in the roses, which I know are probably hard to see on screen. They're a little bit pushed back in that image because the pink rose is the star of that image, but you'll see it again in the photos at the end of the video. Really, really, really beautiful. So again, I'm going to set this to music. I often like to talk about what this process is like, this dance that we do in mixed media art, where you're going back and forth between colors, trying to get that perfect blend and that perfect look that you're looking for, like that intuitive final picture. So that's what I'm doing there. So another dry. And let's see what we're doing now. Oh, so I'm going to come in again with a little bit more of that alcohol. Again, you want to be very light-handed and careful with this process because it can go south really fast. So it's going to lighten up everything again because everything got really dark. I love the dark passages, but I don't want it to look all dark. I want to see those bright colors, and I feel like my contrast in this project was a lot better than some of mine in the past, especially in my earlier years. But look at that. So see how that white, we're seeing those white lines, that is the texture. So another dry there, and another, I guess I'm holding it up again. Oh, so I'm not sure what I was doing there, guys. Oh, the butterfly. So I picked this butterfly. It is also a digital kit that I will link below, but I thought it was perfect because it's got a little bit of pink, but it's got more yellow. So it's going to really pull out the yellow of those roses, which yellow is my favorite color. And then the pink rose is for my Emily, and I've always associated the pink rose with her. And so in all of my remembering and all of my poetry for her, it's always about the roses. So I'm going to go ahead and use my matte gel and put that down as well. And then that pencil, I've got a charcoal pencil there that is a medium lead. And I start with that, and I'm going to use it to outline my collage elements. But you're going to see me bring in another softer lead charcoal pencil because I wanted a little bit more, a darker line. And what the charcoal pencil does is it allows you to go around all of those images, and it makes them look a little bit more three-dimensional, not so flat on your project. And so I'm going to be doing that. So I'm going to set that to music as well because it does take a bit of time. But before that, I remember now that I'm going to use a black soft pastel, and I'm going to go around the outside of the whole project before I go ahead and focus in on that fine detail with the charcoal pencil. So this is again just a black chalk pastel, and it just creates this beautiful dark frame around the project, which I think is really beautiful. Even if you don't go really grungy, if you come in with some kind of color of something to go around those edges, it helps the eye of the viewer stay within the picture, to stay within the project and not wander outside of the boundaries of the substrate that you're creating on or the journal page that you're creating on. So it's a great effect, and it's something that I do in all of my projects. I will be needing to seal this whole piece of work because it's charcoal and it will just rub off unless it's sealed. So I'll be doing that at a later point, but I'm keeping it for myself. So I'm not sure where I'm going to put it, but I'm going to find a home for it. And here's me going in with that medium lead charcoal pencil, and it just wasn't doing it for me. So I do come in and switch that out, but I'm going to go ahead and set the music on for a little bit. Okay, we are coming to the end. What a fun project. I hope that you didn't mind the voiceover. I know it can be a little bit strange. I have a hard time talking in present tense when it's not present tense. I created this a couple of days ago. So, but anyway, if you want to read the inspiration for this piece, you can head on over to the blog at B.Reborn.com, but the link will be provided down below in the video description box. So guys, I thank you so much for stopping by and for letting me share my art and my heart with you, my art and my heart. So take care, my friends. See you soon. Bye-bye.